Okay, I'm going to read a little section of this. Time is too short for church games. Besides, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, the battle is raging. Many of our frontline combat troops are dying right and left because of lack of knowledge about their worst enemy. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Well, we're not supposed to be ignorant of his devices, but the church has made it so we are ignorant of his devices. And I want to talk about events that took place in 2024 and what's coming in 2027, I believe. In 2024, I'll just flip this around. There was so much going on. I'm going to pause this. Okay. So in Hebrew, a leap year is called Shana Me'uberet, which translates literally to a pregnant year. And that was what 2024 was on our calendar. But on the Jewish calendar, it was also a leap year. In their calendars, a leap year happens every 2.7 to 3 years. And ours is every 4, obviously. So 2024 was a pregnant year. And it was repeated throughout the events. That was going on that year, that it was a pregnant year. It was a time of something about ready to be birthed, something full. And I want to talk about the significance of a pregnant year. So a pregnant year in the Jewish calendar means that it's a pregnant year because they have 2 adar, and having 2 adar, they have 2 Purim. And so it's pregnant because it's carrying an extra month in its belly. And the significance, to being pregnant in a womb, and what the implications of that. Womb is a portal, really. They say womb is a portal because a woman, when out of her womb, will bring forth something that was from, the spirit world into this world. And so a womb is a portal. So there was something going on with this. And I looked into Purim, and, it goes back to the story of Esther. And when you look at her name and you look at the story, that it means, it literally translates to the revelation of the hidden. And I was like, wow, okay, so there's going to be a revelation of the hidden this year. And it was repeated because Adar 1 and Adar 2, Little Purim and Purim, it was saying revelation of the hidden, revelation of the hidden. It was a repeated theme. And I'm trying to see if there was anything I wanted to say on that. So the revelation of the hidden, revelation means to take the cover off. So of something hidden. During Purim, there was a celebration of, it was a time of redemption, because, those who planned to destroy us tried and failed. And this theme was repeated twice that year. And, they were in their Babylonian exile. We were in a Babylonian exile. Come out of her, my people. Babylon is fallen. It's just a repeated theme that goes on throughout time. And so I'm just going to read a little bit of this. Purim is a celebration over those who have tried to destroy us and failed. The festival of redemption is a celebration of the renewed covenant on Mount Sinai. And it is true that it's a renewal of that covenant. And then it was repeated, a renewal of that covenant on Mount Sinai. And I had talked about this before, that when the children of Israel came into covenant with God, then they had terms, which are the commandments, and then the blood mark. This is where they received the terms to that covenant, but they had agreed to it prior to that. So I'm just going to go on. Even though we are in Egypt or Babylon in idolatry, when we return to him, he renews his covenant of betrothal with us. When we walk away from it, it brings exile and captivity and diseases. And I had done a video on that, about how the difference between exile and redemption is the Aleph mark, which interestingly enough is this mark that was completed during the eclipse of 2024. We can see this message coming together the more we study it. So anyway, in the story of Esther, what the revelation of the hidden was during that time was the revelation of the enemy planning destruction on the people. The enemy Haman is a descendant of Amalek. He goes back to Esau, which is Edom, which is Rome. So there were implications of end time implications going on here. And one of the rabbis that I recently found, he was talking about how during October 7th, 2023, was really the bringing about of Gog and Magog happening. And I'll just bring that up later, but I want to talk about, the year of the dragon, which 2024 was. And it really was the year of the dragon. Because when you go back in time and you see what all happened during that year, we know subconsciously, if you can vaguely remember the events, I try to write them down so I can even remember them. So on July 5th, 2024, there was a hurricane that happened. And I had done screenshots. I had done posts on Facebook. I got rid of my Facebook. I just got tired of being ignored and looked at as a lunatic. Anyway, so during that time, if you remember, during the hurricane, if you watched the reporter, he was out on the beach and there was waves, just horrible waves coming. And he said this thing and people were like, what did he say? He said, the dragon has been released and more dragons to come. And I was like, okay, there's something with this. And so I screenshot what he was saying and I have it saved in my stuff. And I just compiled this with my notes on 2024 as being the year of the dragon. Because in the Chinese calendar that year was the year of the dragon. It started on February 10th. And then on June 19th, or June 15th, I checked up the dates. There was conflicting dates. Anyway, the Empire State Building had the dragon on it. If you've ever followed, for some reason they like to use the Empire State Building as their billboard, and they will put different things on there. They have put Cowley on there before. They put the dragon on there. It's like their message board of symbology. Okay, so in June 2022, there was a SpaceX piece that fell, and it was called The Trunk of the Dragon. And it fell into Michael Wooten's yard in North Carolina. And when you study, I had said this in another video, they like to use certain names. So that was his name. And this goes back to another video that I made where I was talking about they like to use names that relate to wood that ultimately goes back to Odin. So when you look up Wooten, it is related to Odin. But so those were repeated themes. The dragon, the dragon, the dragon. But the reporter himself even said the dragon has been released and more dragons to come. And yeah, that was just weird. So, we know it's a pregnant year. We know there's revelation of the hidden to be taking place. And so I'm writing all of this stuff down as a list of like what's going on. And I don't know what I did with my paper. I'm afraid to pause the video. I might make a part 2 where I just list everything that's going on this year. Year of the dragon, pregnant year, leap year, revelation of the hidden, revelation of the enemy, and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go back to this. So as this was approaching, the solar eclipse was approaching, during that time people were saying that the CERN was going to be fired up. And so I started studying that, and I had made a post April 15th of 24 where I was talking about they connect a certain thing and everything about it. You might say, well, the disease and the remedy and the variants have nothing to do with each other, but they do. It doesn't matter whether you got the remedy or whether you didn't get the remedy. Everything concerning this is a message, and they're all connected. So I was looking into CERN, and it brought up a past article that I had found, and so I brought it together, and I was like, they're connecting these. CERN is a portal, really, but so is a new moon. A new moon is a portal. When you look into it, studying wise, into Jewish things and that kind of stuff, you will come to the conclusion. And I have it in my notes. I just don't, for time constraints, dig up in everything. I can, if I'm supposed to later, I'll bring it up. So portals were being repeated here. A new moon is a portal. So I focused on, okay, why are they firing up CERN? Which is interesting because they fired it up on April 8th and they ran it till the end of October, which was October 28th, 2024. And I looked into those dates and I was like, what's so important about why do they only have these few months? And they're starting it on the feast day of God, which was Nisan 1. It was the beginning of the Passover feast time, and it ran till the end of October 28th. And I was like, why are they doing that? And I realized that at the end of October 28th was the end of God's feasts. The time this was covering was exactly the time of God's feast days that year. And I looked into this article and everything that this means, because they were tying these together, the destroyer. And I found out that Shiva with his wife Parvati, they meld together and they make Kali, which is the destroyer. I made a video on that anyway. And so I'm doing my studies on this, and I find that they also were firing 3 rockets at the moon that year. And I'm like, it was, so the sun was in eclipse with the moon, right? And CERN gets turned on. And 3 rockets are being fired at the moon, which is a portal. And so I looked up 3. 3 in Jewish law is, let's see, I have it here. Yes. Okay, so NASA was firing 3 rockets at the shadow of the eclipse, which was the moon. In Jewish law, it says anything said or done 3 times connects to it and connects it to this world. So they were doing things behind the scenes, and if you know, you know who this thing is. It goes back to Nimrod and being the first builder, first Mason builder. Okay, and they did that on April 8th. So I looked it up 8th as well. And 8 symbolizes man's ability to transcend the limits of physical existence. It alludes to the departure from the natural world and entry to the supernatural world. The gematria stands for which is on a plane above nature, the metaphysical. It is a sign it's associated with the sign of the covenant of Abraham, which is a seal of righteousness. Yeah, running through October 28th. These are my notes from 2024. And then I tried to find it recently on the internet, and if you're like me and you study and you look up stuff on Google, you know I don't have to tell you that the internet scrubs things. You can ask the exact same question 3 different times on Google, and it will give you 3 different answers. And some of those are very conflicting. So that's why over time I've screenshot things, I've wrote things down, because I'm just like, I'm not making allowances for the enemy to lie about it. So I made notes. I said the running time of CERN was April 8th to October 28th. And then I said it covers Nisan 1 and Tishri, which is the former and latter rains, the fall feasts and the spring feasts. And Tishri and Nisan represent, one is the conception of the earth and one is the actual birth. This is a time of judgment. This is a time of miracles. And I said that, CERN was in connection with the nurse, Callie, and I did a video on her, and that she is the destroyer. And they were making the connection between this and this and this and this. And so I'm just going to, I'll probably just come back to some of this stuff. during this time is really when God led me to covenant, because I was like, through the pictures, and I share those in other videos, of the chandelier, of the Last Supper, which is the Passover supper the Messiah did. The chandelier, I can't spell it. And then in Callie, the nurse, how these all connected. And during 2024 is really when God was, he made me aware. I said that in the other videos. I took notes. I took screenshots. I wrote the articles down, but I didn't study in depth really about them. I did study bits about the Last Supper picture in Paris. This was the naming of this, and then the chandelier with the nurse and the vaccine bottles. And I said, so it was a repeated theme that I kept seeing, that they were making fun and mocking God's covenant. But not only that, they were making a connection between God's eternal covenant of protection and redemption to what they did and what they've done. And so I really started studying about God's covenants and how they're all the same thing. They're just renewed with different people. And it's a continual. God's covenants are eternal. They are eternal. If you want to go back and watch the videos on these, you can. I know I need to make one where I'm tying them all together, because I'm sure people think, like I said, well, the variant and the disease and the remedy don't go together, but they do. I will pause and stop and talk about this. One of the doctors that I was following there for a while concerning what was going on in 2020, 2021. He basically said, and other doctors agreed, that there is no such thing as this, that really what is happening during the time where they say this is going on, it is gene deletion of the people that have been, So I'm going to go back to what was taking place during 2024. It was a revelation of the hidden, which was going to be a revelation of Haman and his intention to destroy us. And then after that, God led me to something in my book, in my in the chronological Gospels. So, I'm reading in 2024 about all the things that are taking place, and I'm trying to put all the pieces together of, little Purim and the regular Purim and revelation of the hidden and the dragon this and the dragon that. And then God leads me to this. And I was like, no, God, please. Apollyon, the destroyer, revealed on Adar 15, Purim. Haman as the destroyer. 1,290 days until the marriage supper of the Lamb. This is Revelations of the chronological Gospels. And I was like, God, you revealed it. You revealed what was going on. Yeah, and I had said it in a Facebook post. I said, I really believe that in 2027, we got to wait till 2027. Because 3.5 years from Adar, Purim of 2024 brings us to Fall Feasts of 2027. So I'm just going to read in this book, which is the Chronological Gospels. This is Revelation 9:1. The fifth trumpet. Then the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven to the earth. The angel, or the messenger from the abyss, was given a key, and he opened the abyss. There arose a smoke out of the pit like the smoke of an enormous furnace, and the sun and the sky were darkened because of the smoke. Out of the smoke of the pit, flying locusts came down upon the earth, and they had the power to inflict pain much like a scorpion. They were commanded not to harm the grass, nor any green, nor any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. Now I've gone back, and when I was talking about the mark of God, I made a couple of videos actually on it. The one that was talking about the mark of Messiah, and it is the Aleph and the Tav. It is the covenant mark. It is truth. The mark of God is truth. And they were ordered not to kill, but only afflict pain for 5 months. Their torment was like the pain inflicted when a scorpion strikes a man. In those days, men will seek death, but shall not find it. They will desire to die, but death will flee from them. Now the appearance of the locusts was like horses prepared for battle. It looked as if they had crowns on their heads, similar to the crowns of gold. Their faces looked like the faces of men. They had hair similar to the hair of women, and their teeth were like lions. They had breastplates that looked like iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of many horse-drawn chariots running into battle. They had tails like scorpions, and there were stings in their tails. They were given the authority to harm men for 5 months. The destroyer revealed, and they had a king over them, and the messenger from the abyss, whose name in the Greek tongue is Apollyon, but in the Hebrew tongue his name is Abaddon, the destroyer. And I talked about in one of my videos, talking about the chandelier, I believe, yeah. Apollo is related, is told in the symbology of the chandelier story, and it is connected to the destroyer. It is connected to Apollo, Apollyon, Abaddon, the destroyer. So just based on my studies, not calculation of time, none of that stuff. Just God leading me when I was studying the revelation of the hidden, what per the pregnant year was going to bring. Something will be birthed, something will be revealed. And it was the revelation of the hidden. Revelation of the destroyer. And what they've done. And how they were all connected. Especially to the dragon. I've done videos on that. Talking about the Exodus and how the serpent is really related to the dragon and Pharaoh, which is, the leader over the last days, really, because it's a repeated theme that goes on. I'll probably try and do another video, but I just wanted to go over my notes, because for some reason I keep feeling like I need to talk about (2027). So yeah, I want to end with the part here where so they mock the covenant of God through their symbology, like the Last Supper mock, and they've done that numerous times. But they connected it with the events of 2020. They were connecting the Last Supper, which is the protective covenant, protecting people from the destroyer. Through their mocking, they mock as Haman did, and it makes a show. And their law is that they have to show what they're doing or prior to what they're doing, so that they are guiltless, blameless. I made a post of that in my on my post section, where another person is talking about the same thing. It is what they have to do, their karmic rule. Anyway, so the picture of Shiva, she's the destroyer, and they connect her with this, but they connect her with this. You can look at those videos and just see what you come up with. But I just found it interesting, and I even said it then, that I said it in 2024 on Facebook. I was like, I'm studying all this stuff, and I'm like, I run across this, that during Purim, Haman would be revealed. And in my studies that year, it was.